before you go diving, we need to do a dive plan. One of the items that we want to look at in that dive plan is our nitrogen profile, so that we can prevent decompression sickness. So before you go diving, you're going to have to determine what is going to be your maximum depth. Now, your maximum depth could be something arbitrary. You could be on the wreck. The superstructure's up here in 60 feet of water. The bottom of the wreck's in 80 feet of water. Okay. If you're going to spend most of your dive at the top of the wreck, but you think you're going down to the bottom just for a minute, then the total time of that dive has to be considered 80 feet. Okay. So that's going to be your maximum depth of 80 feet. The next thing we want to do is look up our no decompression limit at 80 feet. Our no decompression limit is the amount of time we can spend down there, and if we don't go over that time, we don't have to worry too much about getting decompression sickness. Okay? We find our no decompression limit on this table A. The left-hand column is in meters. The next one is in feet. So what we do is go down and find our depth in feet, in this case 80 feet. Then the next column over is our no decompression limit, which in this case is 32 minutes. So our no decompression limit in 80 feet is 32 minutes. Now you do not want to push the limit, so we want to build some safeties in. So we want to pick something less than that. Time less than that. I like to use 10%, so that's about 3 minutes. So if we take 3 minutes off of there, let's call it 28 minutes. Now that 28 minutes is what we call bottom time, BT. BT starts the moment your head goes underwater. It's the time you take descending. It's the time you're playing around on the bottom, and it ends right here when you start your ascent to the surface. It ends right here. Now that's normally all you have to do if you're doing one dive. Is just look this up and make sure you don't go over 28 minutes. But when you come up from that dive, you're going to have 28 minutes of nitrogen left in your body. 28 minutes of nitrogen left in your body. So that's going to stay in your body for up to 12 hours. So if you're going to make any more dives in that 12-hour period, we have to take into consideration this nitrogen that's left in your body. This nitrogen that's left in your body is what we call RNT, residue nitrogen time. Now we can't measure nitrogen pints or gallons or cubic feet, but we measure it in minutes. So we say after that dive, when you come up, you've got 28 minutes of residue nitrogen in your body. Now in these tables, instead of using minutes, when you get back up on what we call the surface interval, this is our surface interval, SI. We get back up on the surface. From here to here, we use letters of the alphabet. So what we have to do is convert that 28 minutes into a letter of the alphabet. We do that in table A by coming across, again, at 80 feet and find our actual nitrogen time. In this case, it's 28 minutes. Once we find 28 minutes, you look down the bottom, you find a letter down there. In this case, the letter is G, which we'll put right here. Sometimes we'll put it up here. It doesn't matter. While we're on the surface, we're losing nitrogen. So before we make another dive, now we have to figure out how much nitrogen we've lost during that surface interval. So let's say we're on the surface for 2 hours before we go back in the water again. So what we do is go down to table B, the surface interval table, go in there at the letter we were before we started, which is G, and look for 2 hours. 2 hours would be in the interval between 1:45 and 2:37. Then we look over to the left and we find a letter there. In this case, it is E. Now, what we have to do now is determine our maximum depth for the next dive. In a series of dives, you should always do your deepest dive first. So this next one should be shallower. Let's say pick 70 feet. We do the same thing that we did with that first dive. We've got our maximum depth. Now we look for our no decompression limit. Our no decompression limit is 70 feet. Again, go over to the first table. It's going to be 42 minutes. So we do not want to go over 42 minutes on that second dive, total nitrogen. But we've got nitrogen left from that first dive. So what we have to do now is convert this letter E back into nitrogen, RNT again, at 70 feet. We do that in table C by going in at 70 feet and going down to E. Where E and 70 intersect, we find the top number here is 25 minutes. That's how much nitrogen we still got left over from what we got on the first dive. So we're going to be coming down with 25 minutes worth of nitrogen. The most we can have on this dive is 42, so if 25 is already used up, that means the most we have is 17 minutes. So again, you would pick a bottom time something less than that, let's say 15 minutes. Okay, sometimes where we go diving, you can dive 24 hours a day. So every now and then we have to look at our dive profile and we sort of plan our recreational activities around our dive profile. For example, let's say we want to go out and we did a dive to 70 feet. For our limit at 70 feet from this table is 42 minutes, so let's say we're going to spend 30 minutes down there. Now we're going to come back up. We're going to spend a surface interval. We had so much fun at 70 feet, we want to go back down there again. And we want to get 30 minutes again. Now we have to figure out how much time do we have to spend on the surface in order to be able to do this dive. Same as before. We look up our no decompression limit at 70 feet. Our no decompression limit at 70 feet is 42 minutes. So we're well within our limit if we're going to spend 30 minutes there. Okay. Now we're going to come up to surface and go back down to 70 feet and get another 30 minutes here. But now we want to determine how much time do we have to stay on the surface to be able to make that dive to 70 feet. Now, if you recall, 70 feet, we got a limit of 42 minutes. If we want to get 30 minutes down there, that means the most nitrogen we can bring down with us, our residue nitrogen, is 12 minutes. So now we got to work these tables in reverse. After that first dive, 70 feet for 30 minutes, we have to go to 32. Whenever you're in between a depth or a time in these tables, you always go to the next highest. So it's 70 feet, it's 28 minutes. We look at 32. We see we are a G diver. Now we can't go any further. So let's go over here to that second dive again. We already figured out the most nitrogen we can bring down with us is 12 minutes. So what we do is go to table C here at 70 feet and find something 12 minutes or less. We go down here. Here's 12. Here's 8. We come across at 12 and we find we got to get down to a B diver. Okay. Now working this table, surface table in reverse, we come across at B, and where G intersect, we find we have to spend at least 4 hours and 24 minutes to 5:40. So you want to probably spend 5 hours on the surface. Okay. But then you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, 5 hours, what are we going to do for 5 hours? That's too long for a lunch break. So what you would do in this case is, instead of 70 feet, let's see what we can get if we did it at 60 feet. So 60 feet, we have a limit of 51 minutes. And if we want to get 30 minutes down there, That means now the most nitrogen we can bring down with us is 21 minutes. So if we look at 60 feet for 21 minutes or less, we go down to 19 minutes. We go over here and we see we have to get down to a sea diver. Now, going across where C and G intersect, we find we have to spend at least 3 hours and 30 minutes to 4 hours, so roughly 4 hours. So you say, okay, that's a little bit better. Now we can go do a tour or something. Now, of course, working these tables is important, but if you have a computer, your computer does all this for you. All you have to do is look at it. But it's good to know these tables, because if you're somewhere, the computer goes bad, no batteries, you've got to go back, figure your dives by using the dive tables. Thank you.